Oh boy, I got another exciting one today about Abraham, this time Abraham and Isaac. God came to Abraham and he said, I have a test for you. I want you to take Isaac and I want you to go to Mount Moriah, to one of the mountains, and I'll show you where to go. And I want you to offer Isaac as a sacrifice to me. So back then, instead of just being able to pray for forgiveness for sin or even give our tithes to God, and talk to your parents about what a tithe is, but we're supposed to give because nothing we get here on earth really belongs to us. We think it does, but it doesn't. And so God asks us to give him 10% or whatever we think of in our heart that is right to give God as just a gift to give back to God because of all that he's given us. So in this time in history, before Jesus came, Abraham gives offerings to God. Everything that Abraham has gotten has been because of God, so he gives some back to God. And then there's also the sacrifices for sin. And the only thing that cleanses us from sin is the shedding of blood. And so today, Christians have Jesus who has shed his blood for everyone, and we don't have to offer sacrifices. We just have to pray and ask God to forgive us. But this is before Jesus, and so God has told Abraham to take Isaac and offer him as a sacrifice. And so he took Isaac. He got up the next morning very early, and he took Isaac, and he took two young men. He took a donkey and he loaded it up with the supplies that he needed. He had fire and he had wood. And so they headed out of town to Mount Moriah. And as they were going, they got to the bottom of the mountains. And Abraham looked up to see where he was supposed to go. And God, I guess, told him where to go. And he told the two young men to stay down at the bottom of the mountain with the donkey. He said, I'm going to take the boy and we'll go worship and we'll be back. So he gave Isaac the wood to carry and he took the fire in his hand. And I'm assuming that probably it was a torch, So they went to the place where God told him to go and he built an altar and he put the wood on it. And as they were going, Isaac said, Dad, I see the wood and I see the fire. Where's the lamb? Because they usually offered a lamb for sacrifice. And Abraham said, God will provide. So they get there, and like I said, Abraham built the altar and put the wood on it. And then he tied up Isaac and he laid Isaac on the wood. And he had the knife and he started to cut he stretched out his hand, to cut Isaac's throat. This is a hard one because you don't want to imagine that your father will kill you, but Abraham is being obedient to what God told him. And before he could even get the knife close to Isaac's throat, the angel of the Lord spoke from heaven and he said, Abraham, don't do it. I am very pleased that you are willing to obey me. And so he unbound his son and he looked up. And there was a ram, which is kind of like a goat, a male goat, caught by his horns in the thicket. You know what a thicket is? A thicket is like a bunch of briars. And the ram, the ram's horn had the circle things and he was caught. So they took the ram and they shed his blood and offered him as a sacrifice. But God was very pleased with Abraham because Abraham was willing to give his only son. Now, you have to think about this. What has God promised Abraham? God has done nothing but bless Abraham. And God gave Abraham his son. And then Abraham was willing to give up his son because he knew that God had made promises that he would make Abraham a great nation. And how could he do that without a child? So I think that Abraham believed that even if he killed his son in obedience to God, that God would raise him up again. That's what I think. I just can't imagine killing my own child. But Abraham was willing and he was obedient to God. And that's the important thing. God wants us to be obedient to him. And I don't think he would ever ask us to kill our children. But it's a picture of what God did for us in Jesus. You know, Jesus was God's only son. That's all the preaching I'm going to do. But I want you to know that Abraham, after Abraham was obedient to God, God repeated his promise to Abraham. He said, I will multiply your descendants as the stars in the sky, as the sand on the seashore, and they will possess the gate of their enemies. That means they will win the fight against their enemies. And in your descendants, I will bless all the nations of the earth. I will do this because you obeyed me. And when Abraham left that spot, he named that spot. He named it Jehovah Jireh. And that means the Lord will provide. See you next time.